So here I'm going to talk you through the objectives for energy resources. Outline the energy resources available to society, evaluate them and contrast two of them, so you should be able to do that in an exam, and think about why a society might use a particular energy resource over another one. So this really links into your ability to evaluate. 3.3.2 and point 3 are not that different in terms of the material that you're studying. Now, when you go to the PowerPoint, you can review this video, Mr. Wind or Mr. W, but you've already seen that, so I'm just going to move on. So we want to recap some of our systems knowledge. 1.1.4, describe how the laws of thermodynamics are relevant to environmental systems. We've talked about this relevance in food chains, but here it's going to be relevant as well. The first one, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So where are we going to get this energy from? How are we going to get this from the resource? And then the other principle we have to work with, which is that energy is always transferring from a more concentrated, more useful form to a less concentrated, yet less useful form. And this is entropy, it's called entropy, and it's the second law of thermodynamics, that your energy is always being lost as heat. Heat is a less concentrated form of energy than your chemical stores. So dispersed energy forms that are not as useful, light and heat. Stored energy forms, chemical and potential. So if we can convert our energy into useful forms, into chemical energy or potential energy, then we're going to be able to utilize them a lot more. Or if we can use the heat some way to get back into some form of chemical potential energy. If life had no Earth, the heat from the sun, this dispersed form of energy, would reach Earth and it would warm it, and the heat would dissipate and the light would dissipate and it would bounce back out to outer space again. And the sun would go on providing energy for billions of years. And then that's the end of the story. Nothing more would happen. But here on Earth, we have photosynthesis, and so that energy is captured by plants. It's a remarkable phenomenon. Plants store it for a while, and it's this storage is capturing and concentrating the light energy that comes from the sun that has allowed life on Earth to flourish. So our goal, if we're going to use energy resources to make them do work for us, we need to take the available energy and use it as efficiently as possible to help us do work before it eventually dissipates. Because according to the second law, it's always going to dissipate. So how do we do that? This is a picture of a barley mill that I saw when I was in the Himalayan mountains. And what's happening here is that water is running down through the mill. So this area in here is the mill. The stream is coming here and it's rushing down this piece of wood. And so they've actually taken use of potential energy of the water to convert into kinetic energy. So the water has kinetic energy. To convert into kinetic energy in the mill. And I'll show you the mill in a moment. So how does the water get potential energy? Well, the sun's heat, the sun's energy, evaporates water and deposits back on mountaintops, and it runs back down again. So this is one way that we can use Earth's energy resources. So here you can see the water rushing into the little container, that is the mill. And at the other side, the water's coming out again and rejoining the main stream. So it's just a small diversion. And then it runs underneath this device where there are gears, like a turbine, and it pushes the turbine so that this wheel turns. So I'm going to show you the video now. So here the man's putting barley into the basket, and the wheel below is turning, and it's two stone wheels, and they're grinding next to each other so that out comes ground barley that they can use as flour. So they are getting the water's potential energy to do work for them. Okay, other ways that we can use the energy that's provided to the earth for our use. Here we've got a solar water heater. So as the water evaporates, the small particles boil, they pass up into this storage container here that's insulated so that they stay hot, and this provides hot water. Over here, we're actually going to get some of these at the school. So here water evaporates and runs off. The evaporated water runs off into this container, and this actually provides clean water, leaving behind the impurities in the bottom of this container, so that this is good drinking water over here. So again, we're getting the sun's energy to do work for us. Hiking through the Himalayas, obviously there's no electricity, so you can stop and have a cup of tea, but a cup of tea is no good unless you can boil the water. So here, this is a solar cooker, one type of solar cooker. It's a bowl, and it contains lots of reflective surfaces. So all of the light energy bounces back on, and you can't really see it, but right where my mouse is there, that is a kettle. So the kettle's got water in it, and that will boil, and you can have a cup of tea. Now, it's not only in the Himalayas that people have been using these kinds of inventive devices to harness energy. This is a windmill from Europe. So here inside the mill, the wind would turn the blades of the windmill, and inside these cogs would turn and grind the flour. So this is very similar to the mill in the Himalayas. Okay, you've got here the water is pushing the turbines to turn the wheels, and here the wind is pushing the turbines to turn the wheels. So the two stones grind together, and the flour, the grain, is in between the two stones, and the flour comes out. You can see it says flour or meal exits between stones. So it's exactly the same principle. This one then is converting the wind energy, the kinetic energy in the wind, into the kinetic energy in the stones. So we had all these great technologies, we can do them, but we also had the discovery of fossil fuels. Here we have concentrated forms of energy formed from plants millions of years old. And that incredibly concentrated form of energy has allowed us to become the society we see in the world today. The technologies we have, the innovations, the medical care, the shelter, the housing, the transportation. So although fossil fuels have created many problems, they've also created many solutions. So this concentrated energy has been revolutionary for life on Earth. How are fossil fuels formed? You've been learning about this process since primary school, so I'm not going to review it again. But if you're unsure of the process, go ahead and open up this PowerPoint, and you can click on either of these pictures to open up videos that explain how fossil fuels are formed. Now, with those fossil fuels, the energy has been so concentrated that we figured out how to generate electricity. And then electricity, it's almost like money, in that you can then exchange it for lots of different forms of energy. So you're not just swapping kinetic for kinetic, you're swapping all different kinds of energy forms then into electrical. And all you need for electrical is some way to spin a turbine, and this spins a generator, and this gives an electrical output. And then that electricity goes to your home, your school, whatever it is you need to do. So how can we generate electricity? We just need to ask ourselves, how can we turn a turbine? We can use wind. We can use tidal power. We can use hydropower, okay? So you've actually studied this in the damming of the Mekong, which you watched. So this is an opportunity now you can evaluate hydroelectric power, but there you're using that potential energy, dam up this reservoir here, the water flows through and it turns the turbine, it's going to generate electricity. And you can use heat. So if you can boil water, the boiling water, the steam will turn the turbine. So absolutely any fuel that we can use to boil water, we can use to generate electricity. So this is what's used the most. We can use nuclear reactions, and we do. We use fossil fuels, and we can use geothermal energy. But of course, it depends on your location, and this is something you're going to have to think carefully about. You can't use geothermal energy if you're not in a volcanic region. It may not be suitable where you live. If you live in an earthquake-prone zone, it may not be suitable to use nuclear energy. So now you've had this overview, go back to the different energy options explored and make a table to summarize all of them. So here's the resources, so list those, useful energy, type of resource, and some examples. So that's just to make summary notes. And then go and read Rutherford, page 199 to 202, where she summarizes then the advantages and disadvantages of the different energy sources, and she classifies them as non-renewable, renewable, and replenishable. And finally, on this same web page, you'll find a practice question. Answer this question before coming to class, and we will go over the answers then.